Hi, I'm Barbara O'Brien. I'm an animal trainer and photographer, and I'd like to welcome you to The Empathetic Trainer. Hi, this is Barbara O'Brien, and you're listening to the Empathetic Trainer podcast. Today's guest is Julie Smart. Julie has been training horses for most of her life. Her first job was at her mother and aunt's riding school, and she worked in the New Zealand racing scene in her 20s. At age 40, she injured her back and was told she may never ride again. So she bought a mare and foal to explore groundwork and to motivate her healing. It was then she discovered non-English traditional horsemanship, and it changed her life. Well, that's a whole podcast in itself. We definitely want to hear some of that and what that all means. But let's start at the beginning. Let's start about when you were little and your first exposure to horses, and why are you I'm a crazy horse lady now, so maybe you're the same. But let's start there. What was it like for you when you were young?
Yeah, sure. Well, I was born in London and was born completely under the spell of horses, as many of us are. I drew and read and dreamed about horses, and I was extremely lucky that my mother fostered my interests, and I got to go to a riding school once a week in South London called Willow Tree Riding Stables. And then when I was 9, the best thing happened, and we immigrated to New Zealand. And over
Wow.
here, of course, no, it was quite a different scene. Over here, I got to meet horses that were not prepared for you to get on and ride. It wasn't riding lessons; it was life with horses. So it was quite different, and that was fantastic. My first trekking experiences here. There's a lady. We didn't have riding lessons. You would just go and spend a day with this lady on her farm, and her name was Rona Fraser, and she would eye you up and match you up with a pony, and you had to go and find that pony and catch it and put the halter on and bring them in and groom them and do their feet and tack them up yourself. And I'd never done any of that stuff, so I learnt an awful lot about horses from her, which was fantastic. I owned horses from the age of 13. My mum and my aunt ran a riding school, and it didn't go for very long. It was only for 3 years, but that was a big part of my teen years. And yeah, then I was in the racing industry, and that was everything from it was a stud farm initially, and so it was breeding, weaning, foaling, uh, handling young foals, teaching them to lead, halter training them, that sort of thing, pre-track training, yearling preparation for sales, and then track training and
Trek.
being
So for other people that aren't British or New Zealand, trekking means you say
as a track rider, meaning you ride the horse on the racetrack.
track. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Training the horses to be race horses, basically, on the racetrack. So a track rider is someone who does that, and that was one of the things I did, and
Wow.
and I learned an awful lot there. But it was very, of course, it's a industry. No, it's an industry, and it was very sort of factory. It was one after the other. There's things that will happen in a row, and not much time for the horses themselves. And I got a lot of horse experience, but I also shattered a lot of dreams as well. Because when I was a little girl, I was reading books like The Black Stallion, and I wanted to be the boy who was galloping down the beach with his black stallion, bridleless,
Sure.
and before bridleless was a word, and and I always felt there was more to the connection than just hairy bicycles. Horses aren't sports equipment, and it took me, oh yeah, I learned that through the racing industry, that there's only so much of that you can know. It's so interesting. Back in those days, we had no internet. We had no way of realizing that there were people out there proving the impossible every day. You learned from the people who are closest to you, and it was convenience and tradition, and that's what carried it all through. I learned a lot of good things, but there was a lot that was missing as well. And then, yeah, when I hurt my back, it was truly one of those lucky breaks, if you like, because I didn't know anything about groundwork apart from lunging and a little bit of long lining. And so I thought, well, I'll get this mare and foal and find out what is possible. And someone asked me, had I heard of the Pirelli 7 games? And I hadn't. And so I bought the book, and so I used that to sort of get some different techniques on the ground, and that just sort of coincided with the beginning of the very slow dial-up internet and DVDs. Before that was all videotapes. If you were lucky, I was able to learn remotely, because here in New Zealand everything was very traditional. There weren't many people doing anything outside the square. When I was about 40, it was when I had that mare in foal. I was working with the mare, and I took her to a clinic with a man called Russell Higgins, and he has been my mentor ever since. He is an incredible horseman. He's a New Zealander.
So I'm sorry, let's so we can talk about him just a little bit. His name is
Russell Higgins. Yeah,
with a W.
No doubles, W's. Russell Higgins.
Higgins. Okay,
with
sorry.
An H. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I speak fast and I've got an accent. Sorry about that.
It's okay. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
So Russell Higgins, and is he still around? I mean, yes,
absolutely. I learn from him every year, and for the past 10 years I've been organising clinics for him in our area as well. He also travels internationally. He traditionally would spend probably 3/4 of the year going around, traveling around the world teaching. He's spending more time at home now, and teaching more local students, which has been a very, very recent change. But I don't think there's many countries he hasn't been to. I honestly wouldn't know how many, but he teaches in some really, really interesting places.
So you started working with him. What was the revelation that you had? What did you learn from him, or continue to learn from him?
It was a continuation of I mean, really, the biggest effect, and this won't be a popular thing, but the biggest effect on my life was when I first discovered Pirelli, and he was a Pirelli professional at that time. And if I think about all my top mentors, the people that I absolutely love learning from today: Andrea Wadey, Elsa Sinclair, Warwick, obviously.
Warwick Schiller, for those who aren't
familiar. But if I think of and Russell, three of those four people all came through the Pirelli system. that they actually learned a lot, and while it's very popular to sort of denigrate certain things, it's I learned so much from them. I really, really did. And a lot of it was the actual psychology of horses, and about the bones of operant conditioning and behaviorism before I knew that operant conditioning was a thing. And that they first taught me about positive reinforcement, how to motivate a horse that doesn't want to go, use food. And while they didn't have the science and the proper terms for everything, that they made legitimize a lot of common sense. If you have the thought to get off the horse when you're scared, for example, get off the horse. That's the right thing to do if that thought crosses your mind.
There's definitely been a shift and a growth from with it kind of matches the growth of the internet, because information started to get out there more and more. And now there's so much there's conflicting information, but there seems to be a real trend in the horse world to use what Warwick Schiller calls atunement, to getting to understand why your horse is doing what it's doing, why it's thinking, and then how to communicate better, and that you understand. Same thing's happening with people in the world of trauma, and understanding that everyone has had different traumas, different levels, but it's still there, and it's all things to be worked through. And we saw this revolution in dog training. It started a little faster than with the horses. It's been around a little longer. But I don't know if you know, Julie, but I'm an animal actor trainer. So I train animal actors, and I can imagine training them without food, because it's like that was part of the motivation to make the game really, really fun. Because yes, of course you can make a dog behave, I suppose, and they do work off of praise, and that's nice. But how much more fun to get a yummy piece of turkey, So I mean, you can, and treat training with horses can work really, really well too, no doubt. Especially we were talking about Morgan horses, and I think they're the most food motivated horses in the world. So if your timing is correct, and you have the timing, and you can do all this, and you don't create a monster, well then good on you,
absolutely.
So, but you imagine nobody would have, even years ago, at least when I was growing up, that was ridiculous. You wouldn't think, I'm going to give them, I'm going to shape a behavior. I'm going to shape a behavior and reward it with something yummy, and rewarding horses at all. growing up as kids, I grew up
Yeah.
very much like you, where I had this older woman that had a farm, and I'd work Saturday mornings, do chores and work and do things to earn hours so that I could ride all afternoon, so I didn't have to pay for my riding lessons. So it was the best thing, because A, you learned how to work hard, but B, we had complete and total freedom, which also means we had no guidance. We just jumped on those poor horses and just rode all over, and they were so forgiving. Those horses, if you think about it, so yeah, horses are amazing animals. But now, as a horse person, I'm trying to do better all the time, understanding them better so I can do better. And I think there's a great desire among people to do better with horses, dogs, cats, everything, children, I hope. So,
Yeah, definitely.
so then you had this mare in foal. And
Mm-hmm.
how did that help with your healing then with your back? And I mean, with your life
Oh,
changing?
well, first of all, I hadn't realised up until then, those dream horses that I used to read about, and the relationships I dreamed about, and the things that I would try to do, like riding in my halter with a lead rope, when I had no idea how to actually use those tools to control any sort of
Mm-hmm.
situation, really. Yeah, it's that mare in foal coinciding with learning about the groundwork revealed to me what horses were really like. I realized that I didn't actually know my horses. I said I loved horses, but I didn't love the horses. I loved the idea of the horses and this picture that I had in my head of everything that horses meant to me. And when, of course, when you're younger, it's all tied up with ego as well.
Yeah.
Freedom for being female, strength. Horses are a great equalizer. If I'm on a horse, I'm equal to anybody, and so in my teen years, I got a lot of my strength from having a horse, and
Mm-hmm.
but the thing is, it was everything that those horses could do for me. When I realised that this mare and foal, and I started doing the groundwork, and right at the very beginning of their program, which is the beginning of every good program, was spending undemanding time, actually getting to know the animal, being there without actually asking them to do anything, and anything that's any good, I think, kind of starts from there. And
Yeah.
when I did that,
Undemanding time. I'm just
yeah,
going to repeat these
sure,
concepts for people.
please do.
Because you're like me, we get excited and we talk fast.
And
So
we're off.
I'm going to help our audience out.
Thank you.
Undemanding time. From what I understand and what you're saying is, and Warwick Schiller, who, I really follow quite a bit. You go out and don't ask for anything. It doesn't have to be transactional. That's
No,
what you're saying,
exactly.
correct?
Exactly, yeah. The only thing that you're really asking for is feedback. So the horses don't have to give you anything. They've just got to be themselves. And what's the best thing about that sort of work, Barbara, is that it really hones our own. You were talking before about timing with positive reinforcement. And of course, timing with any horsemanship is absolutely crucial. And I think that the undemanding time, when you're looking at horses and you're looking for feedback, and then if you take an Elsa Sinclair take on it and think, right, how can I make them feel a little bit better? If
Mm-hmm.
you see that the horse is a wee bit tense, doesn't like you being there, you can walk around, get a bit of rhythm, and you can see how that affects them. And the timing of when you do that is vital. So what it does is it increases your feel, because to me, I think feel is really defined by paying attention. Um, there's a great saying which I heard from Russell, and I don't know where he got it from, but focus gives you feel, focus and feel give you timing, focus, feel, and timing give you balance.
Okay,
And
that's wonderful. I want you just to
yeah,
repeat that
yeah,
nice and
sure.
slow. Start over again. That was wonderful. Say so.
So
Focus gives you feeling.
focus gives you feel, focus and feel give you timing, focus, feel, and timing give you balance.
Oh, I love it.
and
Okay.
and it starts with the focus, with paying attention, our focus, and it's not like going out there and staring at the horse. You do not want to do that, but paying attention in the way that the horse does. How do they react to each other? If they're orienting in the same direction as each other, do they stand perpendicular to each other and stare at each other? They don't. You try and get two horses to approach each other nose to nose when you're riding, and
Mm-hmm.
you soon realize how difficult they find that. It's quite a confrontational thing to have the two eyes, and yeah,
Right.
so so yeah, just all those things that sort of, yeah, that undemanding time. I think it's just such a powerful. There's so much value. Doing nothing is not doing nothing. It's definitely doing something.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah,
that would be the first step, undemanding time, and then
yeah,
what happens
yeah.
after that?
Um, Well, that was when the veil dropped, and I realised that my horses were just like my dogs. They're people. that they have opinions. And when I started giving them opinions, no, it was okay for them to be far away if they wanted to, or if they wanted to come and talk to me, that was okay as well. The next thing that tended to what arose with my mare and foal anyway was when they realised they were allowed opinions. They started telling me their opinions, and they had some rather interesting opinions about their life experiences up until then, you know, and they let me know, if this was okay or if that was not okay. I mean, I'll use my latest horse as an example. He's an ex-endurance Arabian, and he's 10 years old, and he did 4 years working in the endurance racing scene and professionally with sort of high level, our good people, and competitive, I mean. And when I bought him, I could see that he'd been very well treated. He liked the man that he belonged to very much. I could tell that. And the man said to me, "Oh, he's great. He's my favourite horse to ride." And I can see why. I agree with him. But he also said he's great for everything. He's really good to tack up and to groom and everything else. Well, when I gave that horse some opinions, he told me very clearly that he did not want to be tied up, he did not want to be groomed, and he did not want to be saddled. And so, no, this, and it feels like, oh, I've created a monster now. My horse won't do anything. You know?
Right. But if you had a choice,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, but yeah, it's consent, and so you learn how to. I've learned. It started with that mare and foal with just little things, but with him, it just took. I'm just having such a fantastic time teaching him that it's okay to be saddled, and teaching them that actually he might want to be saddled. And so we've got an agreement. I never put a saddle on him unless he's at liberty, and he's out in the paddock, and I stand there and I hold his saddle pad up, and he comes charging over. He does everything with great emphasis, gives me his back, and put the saddle blanket on his back, and it started off with the attunement and with the cat H and that sort of thing. But as soon as the horse goes through that stages, to start off, they're worried about something, they say no, and you back away and you let them have that no. Then when they start trusting that you are reliable and they can tell you something and you're going to respond to it, they start expecting you to respond in a way that they appreciate. And then you can stretch the moment. They say no, you say, "Are you sure?" And they go, "Oh, okay, I'll relax now." Great. Then you retreat again. You don't go forward, you retreat again. Then when they get curious, when that horse comes up to you and starts nudging that saddle blanket, that's when you can do your training. And to me, there's a very distinct difference between taming and training. Taming to me is the befriending and building the trust and the connection and all that sort of thing. The things that horses have with each other. The training, this is the operant conditioning. And you can use positive or negative reinforcement, ethically, and for me, with that particular horse, because I was counter conditioning how he was feeling about the saddle and the saddle blanket, he got a click and a treat, and so that developed huge motivation and enthusiasm. And of course, he's gone from a horse that would argue and obviously upset, biting and stomping his feet and flashing his ears and everything, to someone that canters to me to get his saddle on, so he still has a bit of sass about it, it's done. He'll come and he'll toss his head. It's almost like, "Oh, if you must," and once again, that's another little level that you have to check it back with it and say, "Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure?" And it's an ongoing conversation. It's it's really good, and it never stops. You're always working on that consent, aren't you? So I forgot what the original question was. But
no. That was it. That's really, really wonderful. One of my earlier podcast guests will know that a year and a half ago now, I've got 3 horses, 3 Morgan mares, foundation working Western Morgan mares. So they're the small, compact, old style Morgan mares, fillies from out west, out in Montana. So it's very, very vast, and it's mountains and mountain range and plains. And so they had a very, very large, really considerably large pasture. And there was like 60 in the herd that were together, the mares and foals all the time. And so the 2 yearling fillies came completely open-minded, like blank slates. They had not been mishandled because they'd had enough care, through their lives, but not handled, certainly not handled, right? I mean, but no bad experiences, with humans. Humans were fine. Okay. And they're like sponges and they're adorable. And they're coming 3 years old now. And I mean, they're just a blast, right? They learn, they play, they got sass, but I've had them like blank slates. They've only had good things. The other mare that's coming five, for a short time, the breeder had a trainer that wasn't, because they had so many horses, he wasn't aware, but he had a trainer who the breeder said in his laconic Western way, the trainer fancied himself a roper. And I never really understood like what that meant, but I have these visions of these, was he roping these horses and knocking them down, or, what was he doing? He got fired as soon as he was found out. But the third mare, the oldest mare, Rita, came with such a fear of confinement, a fear of any enclosed space, a fear of any type of rope, any type of lead, and it just this is when I was just starting to understand attunement, starting to follow Warwick, Schiller, and the others, trying to grasp what was going on. And I learned to what you're talking about. First of all, that undemanding time. So the whole first winter, because she would turn her back end like threatening to kick. I mean, she would double barrel. It was going to happen if you got too close. There was like so much nervous and worry about her. I had to learn she needed to be able to see the horizon and see the world around her. Like a barn was too frightening because she couldn't see what was coming. And on the prairie, she had to see what was coming. It could be a coyote, could be this, could be that. I learned that it took a long time for her to understand that the ropes weren't a halter. None of that was going to hurt her. That it took time for her to be safe. But I took the time it took, giving up that expectation. And a breakthrough happened within a few months. I remember I'd work with her through the fence on her body because then I could be protected contact without getting hurt. And she chose to stand by me instead of, she could go as she pleased. And I would, there's apparently a nerve or some right under their jawline. And she loved it when I would just stroke her, and she still does, along here, if you imagine a horse's jawline, and holding her like this, and she breathing. We were always taught, keep those horses' faces away from you, get out of my space, get out of my space, get out of my space, right? But learning to trust interaction by watching their body language, you can tell if they're going to bite you. If you have any sense at all, you can tell they're, so watching body language and keeping your hands like a catcher's mitt, you're not going to. She smelled me from head to toe. And it was the most wonderful feeling of peace, like this breakthrough of like, yes, it's going to take more time. I'm sure I've got to pick up her feet the next day, things like that. It's going to take, it took time, but I feel like that horse would climb a tree for me now. I feel like, and we haven't trained her for saddle because she's just coming 5, and I really want her bones to grow, so this will be a introduction year, but not a riding year. Cause but now it's like she runs over and she's like, scratch my butt, that back end that I was so afraid of, she's like, please, I love, that's my favorite. That breakthrough that's so possible if you take the time, it's all about time. So yeah, we get blessed with easy horses, but sometimes we get horses that are teaching us something. And this horse has taught me patience.
Yeah, that's amazing. Patience. Oh, good for you. That's just.
So I understand what you're saying about your guy teaching you, that he had an opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I knew that he would have, but and of course he's sort of turned up 18 years after other horses had told me that as well. But he was just a really, really good expressive example because but that protected contact, I mean, that's so important. For scared horses because and aggressive horses, and because we're safe, but so are they. Like you said, she can leave. She could go any. No, she only interacted with you if she wanted to, and I've used that as well. Generally speaking, I've worked with a number of wild horses, and my preferred way of doing it is through consent with as much space as possible, and what basically happened is in 2012 one of our local rescues picked up 21 wild horses that were going to be sent to slaughter, and they needed volunteers to help work with them. And of course there's not that many people that have the time and the skills. I didn't have the skills, all the time, but there were 4 of us who were pretty determined that we were going to help these horses, and 2 of us initially, it was myself and my friend Philippa, were the initial handlers. My friend Andrea that took care of the day-to-day routine things, and our friend Sam had organised it all, made it all happen, did all the fundraising, and she also became one of the trainers as well. And what I noticed from that experience with those wild horses, 21 wild horses, mares, yearlings, and foals. Most of the mares are pregnant as well. And yeah, we had a timeline. We no, none of us actually asked to do it. We were asked to do it, and then we felt that we had to. And of course, we wanted to help these horses. It was an amazing journey, so emotional on many levels. But the wild ones there to start with, because we didn't know what we were doing, we tried different things because we had enough of them, and we started with the easiest ones, the foals, and the ones which already had homes waiting. No one wanted the mares, but everyone wanted the young ones because they were beautiful young horses,
Sure.
So yeah, and so the most common way of starting wild horses here, well, it was then anyway, is you get them in a yard, you get a long stick, you touch them with the stick, use approach and retreat until they become acclimatized to that. So you work your way up until you can get a rope on. Quite often, I mean, some people will do things like put halters and ropes on them and turn them out to get used to it, which is a terrible idea. I would never do that. But what I realised with these wild horses, just being in the yard, they were way over threshold. And I knew about thresholds already back then because of Pirelli, basically. That they had been teaching that years before, that honour the threshold is a term that they coined. And so I tried a round pen. That gave them more room. And there was me standing in the middle of this round pen with this colt galloping around and around and around, absolutely terrified, realising that I'd made a mistake. He was too frightened. Just me being there. Being on the other side of the fence made a big difference to those horses. Not as big a difference as if they're on the other side of the fence and they can actually avoid you if they can, And so what I realised, what happens, we went with all the young ones and we were getting it done, that it was okay. But it was coming towards winter and the mares still hadn't been touched. And so we got one of the mares and put her on a stock truck, and we brought her down to my house so I could work with her here. And I didn't have a small yard in those days, but what was really interesting, when the truck arrived and they lowered the ramp, Andrea, who'd been doing all the daily things, and hadn't actually been involved hands-on with the horses that much, training as such, Ginger froze. She stood in the back of that horse truck and she just couldn't move. Everything was completely different. Once again, she had lost all of her friends, all of her family. That mare, she loved the foals, and she'd been separated from the foals. She'd lost her own foal at the facility when she first, about 2 weeks after she first arrived, so she'd been through a lot. And there she was standing there, isolated from everyone else again. And she saw Andrea. We were trying to think how we're going to get her off. No, we just had to wait until she comes down. She saw Andrea walk out, and she saw Andrea. She locked onto her and she followed her. And I thought, wow, look at that. And so to get her from where we had to unload into what I call my welcome paddock, she actually had to go through another paddock quite close up to an overhanging sort of hedge and through a narrow gate and into the paddock. And she just followed.
It's going to require a lot of trust for a wild horse.
Yeah. And I mean, no one had been within about 30 metres of this horse with her consent to that point, and so the fact that she followed Andrea through there, she wasn't super close, she wasn't, but she followed her and she trusted her, and that was a big penny drop for me. I thought, wow, something about building that familiarity and the routine, and that was the undemanding time. Andrea was doing undemanding time without knowing she was doing undemanding time, because someone had to put the hay out, someone had to pick the poo up, someone had to and she was there. She was doing it every day.
I understand. When I still now, so I've gotten Rita, the mare, the anxious mare, used to working inside of my barn, so she can see out one door, but the rest of it is enclosed, because they're out 24/7. They have shelter, but they're out 24/7. They're not kept in stalls. So she comes in and gets some yummies, and we do some stuff. So, but leading her out, she has to stop. You have to give her that minute, that one, her eyes need chance to change to the light. Horses
Yeah.
take a longer time for their light. We can go into a dark room and our eyes will adjust pretty quickly. Horses, it takes a long time. I read, like, what did it say? Lucy Rees, or no, I'm sorry, the other one that talked about horses' brains. Takes time for their eyes to adjust, right? So that's part of it. When they go into a dark space, it's because they're trusting us because they can't see. But anyway, she's going from a darker space to a lighter space. She has to stop, let her eyes adjust, but she has to check it out. Her Mustang, she's a Morgan, but her Mustang mind, her feral horse mind goes, I need to see that it's safe. And so I don't fight that. I go, sure, take a look. And it gets shorter all the time. But I said, take a look. She looks, I look with her, we look. I go, see, it's cool. She goes, yes, it's cool. And you see her just go, fine. And then she steps out. But old me, perhaps, would have been like, what's the matter with you? Energy, get out, No, I let her think, and that builds trust because I'm letting her think. Yeah.
And that shows really great leadership from your point of view as well, because and from how she would see you, the fact that you're making choices which make her feel better and safer, and you're doing it together, you're sharing that leadership strategy of making sure it's safe before you go out, that's that proves to her that you're a trustworthy person. And I mean, and it proves to you that you're a trustworthy person too. I mean, if you have a hesitation, if you stop and have a look, that we can't, to build trust, we need to trust ourselves and we need to trust each other. And to me, leadership with horses is all about providing safety. That's the keeping the herd safe. That is the overall aim of it. Is not about being in charge.
She's the watcher. She's definitely the watcher of the herd. Yeah. So. And she transfers that to me too. It's like we're working together, and she'll look, and I'll go like, oh, okay. I'll agree with her. Like, I'm glad you noticed. I'm glad you noticed that deer, and like a deer in the distance. And then we watch the deer, and then we go back. Like, fine. Like I just agree with her. I don't get after her for being who she is. And
I bet that she pays attention when you notice things as well. I bet you could say, hey, look at. Oh yeah. Yeah.
She's much quicker than me, though. Believe me.
Yeah, they've got good senses.
Yeah, that's their job. That's her job. Okay, well, that's a pretty good segue into horse questions, because when I talked to you about doing this podcast, because Julie, you are going to be writing a book. You talked about, and we're going to talk about your book, but it's not out yet, and it's not like you have this big, internet presence or anything like that. The reason I've connected with you is though you are commenting and moderating other horse trainers, their Facebook pages or their discussions and things like that. And you have an incredible amount of patience for when somebody asks a question about their horse or the horse they're training. You are so kind. Because part of me wants to throttle them sometimes. Like, are you an idiot? Stop chasing your horse till she's dying of exhaustion. She's not learning. I have less patience or could.
Believe
and
me.
I hardly know anything at all.
Writing, isn't it? You can edit before you put it down.
But you are so kind. But what I find so striking is your ability to take a very complex issue, and you're doing it now as we speak. Take a complex thing and break it down for simple people like me to understand. And so I think it's a great gift that you're giving, us at large, to be able to read your comments. And I know that the horse trainers that you're aligned with are appreciative of you taking the time, to answer and help people with their horses. So I thought it would be fun if I asked a couple questions that I put it out to my audience. What are you having some issues with? And so there's two things that came up. One is a personal issue, so I have to ask you these things. And the other one was a really good question. It was about how old, or is a horse ever get too old to be trained? And there's a little backstory here. Back in 2010, we went, and there was a group of what we call the Iowa 41, and it was 41 Morgan horses that needed rescue. They were starving, and the owner at the time turned them over to a rescue group instead of selling them off to auction, slaughter, or whatever. So that was great that he turned them over, realized whatever, and the rescue group got them. And so we went down there and photographed them to help them get homes. And I ended up, of course, taking two of them home. So, so anyway, but they all got placed. And one of them was a stallion. I think he was a stallion. I'm sure he's a gelding now, but a young horse, and they called him Ketchup. Ketchup was his name. And the gal reached out to me when I asked the question, and she said, "How old is too old to be trained? Because we've never been able to train him. His anxiety level is so high, you know."
Mm.
And so I was going to point her to Warwick, Schiller, and like you say, Elsa Sinclair, and some others to kind of help her with her horse's anxiousness and anxiety. But can horses get too old to learn new things? I mean, can you work with an old broodmare, for instance?
Yeah,
So
absolutely you can. I don't think they ever stop learning. Um, Horses, they're a precocial species, right? So they're born ready to learn from birth, ready to be up and to be able to run to save their lives within an hour or so of being born. Horses couldn't have babies like we do, little helpless young, because they are prey animals and they're flight animals. They rely on being able to move quickly to be able to get away, and so I think that trait developed along with the fact that they're just amazing super learners. They learn things really really fast, and I know that they don't stop learning. The oldest horse that I've ever personally worked with is 30. I've got her in my herd now. But
30,
my
wow.
herd, because I don't sell horses. And so the reason I have 14 horses is because the majority of them are geriatric.
Oh, that's I
Because,
have seven. I have seven, four
yeah,
that are
yeah.
that are
And so
seniors for
that,
sure. Yeah.
and I mean, that thing that we when they say that we're training our horses every time we interact with them, you may have heard that saying. Um, that's true. I mean, Buck Brenneman, he's got a really good quote, and I can't remember exactly how it goes, but basically it's along the lines of, no, there's no such thing as a push button horse. You don't get training that sticks. It takes about 2 weeks for them to reset at your level of horsemanship. And so, I mean, that mare had been with me for a good 10 years. She went away for 3 months. She came back, and it didn't take very long. It took just a few sessions, and she was light again. But she had learned that it was okay to lean on the halter if someone was leading her if she didn't want to go. And that was a conversation that she and I never um, had to deal
Yeah.
with,
So
because it never
they can
came
learn
up
pretty
because
fast.
because
Yeah.
of timing. And the person she was with was a lovely girl, but she was just a little bit inexperienced, and she didn't realise that it's the release that teaches. And so she'd started getting into tug of wars with a strong-minded mare who then learned that it was okay to pull. So she
Sure.
learned that since 25, but she's 30 now. She's the paddock mate of my new horse Bashir, and this whole thing that I've been doing with teaching with the saddle and everything, she's been involved because she's there. And she's very quickly became clicker savvy. I hadn't done any clicker training with that particular horse, not
Yeah.
specifically, but she very quickly picked it up. And she knows about parking and targeting, because for me to interact with him, I needed her to keep out the way, and I didn't want to just exclude her because she was enjoying it. I mean, she was lighting up. She was really enjoying it, and
Isn't
so
it fun? Yeah.
yeah, so she goes and stands on the pedestal with her front feet, because that's waits for a treat, and I can do a thing with him, and then I can go over and reward her. But yeah, they
Sure.
definitely don't
Sure.
stop
And
learning,
they do
and I think
mirror
it's
each other.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, they do. They do. She's an emotional support horse for him. When he first moved in, and they're really good friends. But yeah, they never stop learning, and I think it's important that we do keep teaching them things, because it keeps same with us, isn't it? No, we keep new information keeps you alive. It's good.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. All right. All right. Then the question I had is I've been without a riding horse for 4 years. My heart horse, my old Morgan, finally died, and that was right around uh, the pandemic was kind of 2019, right? So the pandemic was sort of starting, and horses got to be super expensive because people were home, so
Yeah.
everyone was trying to buy a horse. I couldn't afford a horse, and then I did get a hold of a little Arab mare at a pretty good price, but she'd had a lot of trauma and an unhappy, anxious horse, and I don't blame her at all. But I was kind of learning about Warwick, Schiller, and some things, but I didn't really grasp it. I was going too fast. And I thought, I'll just get on this horse, ride her bareback, then, start her over because she's shut down, bareback with a halter. And she let me know really clearly that something hurt or something was really wrong. She bucked me off. I broke my pelvis in 3 spots. Took me a while to heal. So that was a lesson in humility and patience. So I found a home for her. She's now a brood mare and nobody rides her, and she's very happy. But anyway, because she was really well bred. So anyway, for years I didn't have a riding horse. And then just a few months ago, I'm a person of faith, and this I believe miracles can happen. And this Morgan gelding came into my hands, right? And he's really well trained. He's coming 19, so he's certainly been there, done that. He was shown when he was younger. He's been cared for his whole life by loving people. How lucky is that, right? So he's, but there was, and they were honest. The sellers were honest with me. It's just I didn't have an understanding of what they were talking about. But he's a cribber, and I didn't know what that was because I've never. I mean, I think, that just means you chews on wood, but those are two different things. And I didn't know what cribbing was. And for our listening audience, cribbing is where a horse will put their teeth over a section of wood or something that they can get a grip on and suck in air and like this. And there's a lot of discussion about whether that's harmful for them or whatever, but really what it does is releases dopamine in the brain. And so it's a habit, like a child sucking their thumb or somebody twiddling their hair to release stress or any number of things that we do as humans, or people become addicted to things. So it's sort of an addictive behavior. And so then the question is it causing them harm? Do they get ulcers from it? Whatever. But I was reading more about it. The horse hasn't a history of ulcers. He's fine. He's eating well, so he's not losing weight. He's got freedom and forage and friends, which are really important to horses. He had that where he was. The reason he picked up cribbing at all is when he was younger and had to be confined to a stall for a short time, and that's where he picked up the stereotypical behavior. And then it just never went away. So I'm not blaming anybody. This was just a circumstance. My other horses are not copying him at all. I don't have to worry. My young horses aren't going to become cribbers. He's not even hurting the fence, so it's like he just kind of, I worry for him if it affects his teeth and stuff. But Warwick Schiller just said recently about this cribbing that I'm all anxious about it, right? Like I'm almost embarrassed, like, oh my gosh, I have a horse that cribs and I'm supposed to like be this great horse person who, the horses aren't suffering and everybody's happy here. Well, A, he didn't develop the behavior here. And B, Warwick said it's just a lesson in patience. It's like, oh, well, acceptance. Oh, well, don't go. I mean, I never was going to put a cribbing collar on him or do things to make him stop because that's just going to frustrate him,
Yeah.
But it was also he's wonderful in 100 million ways. This is the one thing we got to put up with, but it bothers me still. Look out the window and there he is, nom, 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 and I just wish that it will like diminish over time, especially when we can open up the big pastures and there's no wood there, but it's got so much grass. But with horses that can suffer from laminitis in the rich grass here, we're extremely careful in the spring. So we have to wait. But he does have hay 24/7, I mean, he's got food in front of him all the time. So it's just a matter of like accepting him who he is. Any thoughts on that and stereotypical behaviors that you're not causing? Like you've taken away the things that cause it, like confinement or,
Well, horses, they tend to be sort of pattern animals, they pick up patterns of behaviour. And funnily enough, like cribbing is not something we see much here in New Zealand because most of our horses are kept outside.
And mine are, right.
Yeah, which is great. But as you said, no, it was caused by confinement originally. It's frustration and wanting to know when you can't do all the natural things that you would normally do, you pick up these stereotypes. It's a displaced behaviour. It's like sucking your thumb. It's self-soothing sort of thing. And I'm with Warwick. I mean, I do think it's an exercise in patience. I think that, I mean, like with any addiction, if you read anything about addictions, we know that it's not the substance that is addictive; it's the need to feel better. The dopamine.
Of course.
And one of the things I found really interesting, which I read in Jack Panksepp's book, Effective Neuroscience, and Lockie has spoken about. He's touched on it once recently as well, which actually triggered me to go and look it up. Quite often with dopamine, you also get opiates. So dopamine and opiates. There is a connection between the two, and you can. I don't know enough about it to sort of speak with any sort of real knowledge on it, but I do know that with addictions, people just want to feel better. They don't necessarily. I mean, I know someone who was addicted to alcohol, and she then became addicted to something worse, and she dropped alcohol like a hot brick. But and she destroyed herself pretty much. No, her brain, her health, everything. She found Jesus.
I love it.
I don't know if I can compare that to switching addictions, but it was quite interesting that it was a lot easier for her because she was finding something that fulfilled that hole inside her.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So I think what you're providing for your horse, it's just a matter of, as you say, patience and letting it come back. The only horse I actually personally know now that cribs belongs to a friend of mine. He's the most beautiful, calm, lovely boy in the world. He's an ex-racehorse from Hong Kong. And so they have a very rigid. They live underground. They live in apartments, and they only ever come out to race and to train, and that's it.
Right.
And so, and yeah, he still does it. And for him, it's a habit. It's like picking up a cigarette. He just does it. I don't think it's hurt him. I don't think. When I've spoken to my vets, they don't seem to think that it's a physical thing. To worry about too much. So yeah, I'm with you. Like you say, enjoy. I mean, the journey is the destination. So we learn all these things as we go along, right? Lots to be said for that patience. Lots to be found in there. So I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, and I'm sorry that you lost your cart horse, and congratulations on your new horse.
Well, it's a miracle to me to have a horse to ride again, because I hadn't ridden in so long. And I have 7 horses, so it's not, but there's there was 3 older rescue mares that we had for years, and they're just finally they're dying off as they get older, so old that they finally die. But, I made a commitment to them, and they came lame. They came so you could never ride them. So they're just our beautiful companions, and we love them, and then the 3 young horses, right, who are too young to ride. So that's just a matter of patience and time. And then to get this amazing gift practically of this guy who's just up game, let's go for a trail ride, let's go do this, let's go do that, who seems to enjoy my company, who was well loved. I mean, I just love that his people loved him, and the girl that who placed him with me knows he's safe. What a gift for her. He's safe, and she just couldn't keep him any longer. And so I said, I'm just hanging on to him for you. The time in your life comes and you can have him back. Talk to me. But anyway, he's safe and he's lovely. And his name is Teddy. And he's just
Teddy. Oh, he's gorgeous. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think it's time till we get to the point where I sent you a list of questions, and I got these questions that Warwick Schiller does this in his podcast, which I greatly admire. But he got these questions from a book called Tribe of Mentors by Tim Ferriss. So we want to make sure we give credit to that. But I love what he was doing, so I'm totally copying that. Quick Warwick Schiller story. He lives in California now, but he was only 80 miles away from me, because he was at the Minnesota Horse Expo this weekend. And I was trying to work up my courage to go, because I thought, I could actually go to his booth and say hello. And then I decided, I'm not going to do that. I was too nervous. So I didn't. Hold on a second. I opened a program by accident. My cat is walking all over my keyboard, and it opened up Adobe Photoshop, and he's trying to do some work here, and now she's chewing on my fingers. Little Iris here. Okay, so getting back to the questions. There was 20 questions, and I had you pick out 5 that you wanted me to ask her, or ask you. And so one of the first questions is, what book would you recommend and why?
Well, I love books. I love reading. I work in publishing. I think it's so important. And I mean, that's a whole podcast in itself as well, isn't it? But we just did a podcast on Margaret Henry. Are you familiar with Misty Shinkote? Yeah, King of the Wind just so inspired me.
King of the Wind, yeah. So Gal wrote a book. You have to check out Susan Friedland, our last podcast. Susan Friedland wrote a book about Misty or about Margaret Henry. So yes, books for sure.
Fantastic, yeah. Well, right now, I mean, I'm even within reach. I've got this one here, and I
have that book.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, there's so many great great books, but the one that I
So,
would
so for
recommend
those
most,
that you can't see, she held up Through Horsemanship with Feel, and that is Tom Dorrance and
Leslie
is
Desmond and Bill
Leslie
Dorrance.
Desmond. And I tell you, I read that years ago, and it was really hard to get through because it's some very complex ideas, right? And then I read it again just recently with my new understanding of attunement and
Yeah,
feel, because you mentioned feel quite a bit.
yeah,
And there's so much there. Of course, Leslie's wonderful. Tom Dorrance is gone
incredible.
now, but all of the people that are like Warwick, Schiller, and others credit, Tom Dorrance an
Yeah,
awful lot.
yeah,
like
yeah. So this
yeah.
one's Bill
So
Dorrance, is his brother, but
Bill
yeah,
Dorrance, forgive me.
same
Yes, I
thing.
meant Tom and Bill Dorrance together, but
Yeah.
and Leslie Demond, of course, right? So that's a great book. Let's say that name again for everyone because some people won't be watching the video.
So True Horsemanship Through Feel, Bill Dorrance and Leslie Desmond.
Yes.
But I would also, probably the book that would be the first one I would recommend for anyone to read, because same with you, when I first read this, I needed to teach myself how to speak cowboy. I didn't know what they were on about. What do they mean by feel, and
No,
of course
exactly.
once you understand it comes better. But the book I most recommend now is actually Warwick's one. The principles.
Oh yes,
of
Warwick's new book. Yes.
Yeah, and the reason I recommend that is because it's truth in packaging. It's in the title, the principles, of training. The book is about principles, not technique. And if you think about it, most of the learning we do around horses is all technique based. I mean, when I was a little girl, it was about learning to ride, and it was heads up, heels down, hands, no shoulders back. It's all about positioning yourself and skill building as such. But I think that principles and concepts are so much more important. And I mean, probably the thing that made you notice me is that I understand concepts and principles really well, and I don't really pay that much attention to the technicalities. I don't mind. I mean, I just think of the concepts. I mentioned before that I see taming and training as two different things. When I cross the threshold from taming into training, when my horse now trusts me and he's curious and he's ready, I will use whichever technique is the best one for that horse in that moment at that time. I'm a mixed methodologist. I don't just only do one thing. I don't shun anything. I think everyone's got a little piece of the truth, even by accident. There's something to learn from somebody, and yeah, and I think that Warwick's book talks specifically to the principles, and I think that is so important, and it's beautifully written. It's very clear, and it's an easy. No, it's not a hard read. You can get through it, and I think that there's a lot to be learned in there, and principles.
Yep. So Warwick Schiller's principles. I'm sorry, what's the name of the book again? Warwick Schiller's Principles of Training?
The Principles of Training, yeah.
Principles of Training. Okay, excellent book.
Yeah.
All right. All right. What has been your biggest failure and how has it helped you?
Oh, gosh, I've had so many. Well, one thing about failure. one thing about failure is, that's how we learn, right? We make mistakes. And I'll tell you about my horse, Ethel. This was in my late 20s. She was homebred, Clydesdale thoroughbred cross, 17 two hands, about 6 years old at the time. Now, when I was young and before I learned better, I thought that there were two sorts of horses. There were horses that go and the horses that don't go. I liked horses that go. I worked in the racing industry. All of the horses I had were Arab or thoroughbred derivatives. I liked point and shoot. I didn't know how to motivate a stubborn horse. I don't like hitting horses. I've never wanted to do that. But I didn't know anything else to do with a horse that wasn't motivated because I hadn't been taught anything else. And so I would choose horses that go. The thing is, when you breed a horse, you don't know who you're going to get. You can go for all the tendencies in the breeding, but every individual is born. Every single individual person, all animals, we're all ourselves first, And Ethel didn't really like to go, and not in general. She'd be good as long as she was into it, But if she decided no, she'd just go no. I'm not going to go. And so I would come across this, if I wanted to ride out. Sometimes if I was trying to lead her away from her herd, various things where she would object, and I would get this, I don't want to go forwards. Anyhow, it came to a head when I couldn't get her onto a trailer, or we call them horse floats here. And there was a man who was advertising that for $300 he would come and spend as much time as it takes to get your horse into a horse float, and he would give you a schedule of things to do for 7 days, and he would guarantee your horse would load every time for the rest of his life. Otherwise, he would come back and he would resolve the problem for you. And at $300, one price. That was his promise, you know. And now, so I thought, great, okay, I'm going to pay this guy, and he came out. And he was a good he was a good horseman. He actually was a good horseman. He had an idea, but it wasn't it was the first glimpse into a different way of doing things for me. Well, not the first glimpse, but he showed me something different. The principle he was working with, if we were talking about principles before, is choose where you work and choose where you rest, and make the right thing easy and the wrong thing difficult. No. Now, both of those are principles which have their place. And for this particular horse, they were the correct principles, because she was not scared. No. I mean, pretty much any problem you have with a horse is always going to come down to one of three things. It's that basic, honestly. It's either a trust or safety, confidence issue. No, the horse is scared. Or the horse doesn't understand. It's a communication issue. We're not being clear enough, or we haven't taught them well enough, so they don't understand us yet. Or it's a leadership issue. The horse just doesn't see why they should do it. Okay. They don't have any reason to believe that you're a good leader, you know. And when I say leader, I'm not talking about dominance. I mean, that is one factor, you know. It is definitely a factor, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is you're the best provider of safety. You make the best decisions. You always make them feel better. You have proven yourself to be someone that's worth trusting and believing in and saying yes to. You know, that's where you get those yes answers that we look for. So anyway, this guy, he had great feel and timing. He had her loading very, very quickly. And he showed me what to do, you know, and he said, I want you to do this for 7 days. And no, let me know if you have any problems. So the first day, it was easy. I just went out there. I sent her out on a circle, and she went straight into the float. Great. Game over, you know. The second day, we had to do a few more circles, and that was fine. The third day, she said no. And of course, this was that same thing about just no horses that don't want to go, and me thinking that she's one of those types of horses. And she wouldn't go. And so I went to try and move her shoulder over. And I didn't have any skills or technique. You know, I had been taught, I've been shown what to do. Didn't mean that I could do it. So I went to try and yield her shoulder, and she stood side onto me. She looked at me with one eye. She flattened her ears, and like a snake, she turned and she attacked, and she flew at me. I ran into that horse float so fast. She had me loaded like that. It was amazing, active leadership from her. and it was terrifying. In that instant, everything changed for me in my life. I had never ever had a horse look at me as though they wanted to kill me before. She was deadly serious, and she knew it. I knew it. Everything had changed. 17 two hands of horse that had suddenly realized that she didn't have to do what I said. You know, I challenged her, and I didn't have the skills to be able to do it. So
I can relate for sure. That's how I got thrown. I'd never been thrown in my life. Not like that. Thrown off. Just
absolutely terrifying. And I luckily I could get out the jockey door, and she had chased me into the trailer, which is quite funny. She backed out, and I got the end of the rope all the way back to the paddock. She was trying to bite me. She was going for my shoulders. Like she actually lifted me at one point. She meant business. Like, she was furious. So I put her behind the first gate that I could find that would do, and I was shattered. I was devastated. I could not. All of my confidence, just everything that I thought I knew, was out the window.
I'm so understanding this. That's how I felt after I got hurt. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, it was dreadful. So I went home, I cried, I told Roger. We rang the man, and he says, right, I'll come back. So he came back over, and he asked me, can you just show me what happened? And so
you're like, I didn't want to go near.
Very tentatively, I picked up the rope and asked her to move her shoulder, and she immediately flattened her ears. He says, that's fine, I'll do it from here. He had no problem. She immediately did it for him, you know. And I didn't resolve it with that horse, you know. He could get her to load. I was now completely, I was frightened of her. It was, I felt out of my depth. I didn't have the skills. It was horrific, you know. It was really bad.
I understand. It shakes your confidence. Yeah,
it does. Yeah, but the big lesson in this is, for me, is it sounds quite unrelated to start with, but the thing is, don't believe what people say about other people's horsemanship, and just go to the source and find out for yourself. See, the thing is, all my answers came to me about 10 years later when I hurt my back and when I started investigating the groundwork and putting the time into learning how to do that properly. Um, the people at that stage, there was such little natural horsemanship or anything that wasn't traditional. No one was talking about opera condition. No one knew any of that stuff. But back then, no, I didn't have many options. The options I did have, there was a book by Monty Roberts about join
Mm-hmm.
up,
Yep.
and I had a DVD that I'd picked up in some strange place from an Australian guy called Neil Davies, and it was called A Breakthrough for Breaking In, and he would start a horse in a round pen within 20 minutes. No, and this is a video of him showing that process.
Yep.
Both of those things I had completely stuffed up trying to do them, just by trying to learn them remotely.
Right.
This is one of these things which I don't 100% agree with, is that we're not always the best trainer for our horse. Sometimes we need to be trained as well, and I do think that we need hands-on help occasionally. When I was trying to learn remotely with absolutely no support whatsoever, I didn't have the feel or the timing to
No,
be able to do.
that's true. Yeah. No, I have a
Yeah,
helper that. Yeah,
yeah,
I get it.
you have to develop it. You have to develop it. And the thing is, the system that would have saved me and Ethel from that dreadful incident is I wasted 10 years of my life in my physical peak in my lifetime endeavor because I believed someone that said, "Oh, don't do Pirelli. That's really rubbish," and no, and I'm not wanting to bang on about them so much, but that was what started things for me, and that was a springboard into everything else. That
No,
was
no,
that
I
was
get it. I thought I
yeah,
knew
yeah,
things, and then I got hurt, and I had
yeah,
to like really
yeah,
learn and take the
yeah. That's
time
right.
to learn and
Yeah,
follow the steps to
yeah.
take as long as it takes, and that's hard
That's
for because impatience is my worst trait. So I get it. I feel like we must be soul sisters because I tell you, it's paralleled. Okay,
yeah,
the next
yeah.
question is: if you could send a message to the world, what would that be? Or do you have a favorite quote and why?
Ah, well, the message would be pretty much related to what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
As a MITS methodologist, I have got so much value from so many really diverse people who would never spend 5 minutes with each other. I think that we need to build connections and look for what we have in common with people rather than look for differences and demonize people. No,
Oh yes.
no, I mean, that lost 10 years, I'll never ever get that back. I do believe with time, I think that time accumulates. I don't think we spend it. So I don't think we waste it. I think it accumulates behind us. And time matters because what we do with our time and what we accumulate is what forms us into the people we are, everything. And so, to me, I will listen and look and watch and learn from just about anybody. If someone tells me that someone's terrible, I'm probably more motivated to go and see them. Um, I
Mm-hmm.
can't I can't stomach seeing any sort of abuse whatsoever. So I mean I can't do that. But the whole this thing we have about othering other groups, uh, what worries me is what held me up for 10 years, for example. I think positive reinforcement is an amazing thing. I know a lot of people are put off it because they feel so judged by the people within there because they're not doing it yet. They don't know how to do it, and they don't understand all the terms, and they're not using it, and so therefore they're being mean to their horses. I mean, that sort of stuff needs to stop because the message itself is too important, and we
Right.
do have a lot more in common. So I think that's what I would really love to get out to the world. I can't think of a single saying that sort of relates to that. Really, I
No, I,
like
I
lots of them.
think you're exactly right. We do need to be more welcoming and
Yeah,
uh, and learn from each other. That's a
yeah,
good thing.
yeah.
I love that.
Go to the source. It's critical thinking, isn't it? Critical thinking skills. To actually look at the source itself. Don't believe what people who don't support them say. Go and have a look yourself. Look at the person, look at their horse. That's the most important thing. Look at their
Yeah,
horses,
yeah.
then look at their
Didn't
students and look at their students' horses. If it's translatable and it's good, then there's something there worth learning.
right. Good.
Mm.
Okay. The next question is, what is your relationship with fear?
Ah, I love this topic. It's another whole by itself. Um, Fear. I'd like to answer it in two ways. The first way is sort of more practical, and the other way is more sort of philosophical, really. But I think, well, fear is obviously there to keep us safe. It's there for a reason. I think it's very important that we acknowledge it. My relationship over my life has been pretty steady with fear. I am not a risk taker. I'm a very cautious person. I really do think quite deeply before I know, and I can be impulsive, but I'm impulsive in repetitive patterns. I'm not impulsive. No, like I can randomly go for a ride right now if someone comes and says so, but I'm not going to go and go bungee jumping or anything like that. No, I'm not a person who jump. I don't take risks, and so here in New Zealand, we've got a thing called ACC, which is instead of suing people when you get hurt, the government pays for you to get better, and we all pay a tax on it. There's a levy. So every job we have has this ACC levy. The ACC levy for horsemanship, for anyone doing anything with horses, is sky high because statistically it's an extremely dangerous thing to do, especially as a job,
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the amount of time that I've spent with horses, I probably should have been quite badly hurt. I was hurt once when I was 13 and I was a teenager and reckless, and I fell off a pony and broke my arm. That's it. I've never hurt myself with horses since because I am a coward. I will run away from anything. Well, not run away, but if I get a tingle, I listen to it. You got to believe your fear. And I believe that first we've got to acknowledge fear. Secondly, I think if we're scared of something, we should treat ourselves the way we treat a scared horse. Use titration, use approach and retreat, use attunement, use cat H, would be cat H for humans, I suppose. And when your curiosity is up, then take that next step. If I'm scared to ride my horse, I think, okay, I'm really scared to ride my horse. How do I feel about just going and catching him? Well, I can do that. That's all right. What about if I saddle him? Now the anxiety is rising. So I will visualize saddling that horse until I don't feel anxious about just knowing in my visualization I'm putting the saddle on, taking it straight off. Then you go and do that, put it on, take it off until that feels okay, and then goes to the next step.
I understand completely. I had a breakthrough with that mare I was telling you about. I had a real breakthrough with her when I mentally decided I'm not going to be afraid of you anymore. I will be cautious and careful. I'm not going to surprise her or do something that puts her over threshold. Okay. Because then if she reacts, that's kind of on me. But I made a conscious decision to literally think and believe it. Okay. Not fake it, but believe I'm not going to be afraid anymore. I'm going to breathe around you. I'm going to be relaxed around you. I'm making the conscious decision to have my brain match my body so I'm not incongruent and make her worry. And it's been really great because, as long as I'm not doing anything foolish that sends her over threshold, like something unfair or, I'm being fair to her by giving her time. Right. Wow, it's just really nice. It's like I really like her. I was going to send her back in the beginning. In the beginning, I called the breeder and I said, I don't think I can do this. I'm so afraid of her. I've never had a horse threaten to kick me. That scared me so much. But then she doesn't threaten to kick me anymore. I mean, it's not there anymore. Now I'm always going to be. This is a 1,000-pound horse. I'm not going to be foolish. But I made that. That the fear was really wise in the beginning for that particular horse. So that's why working through the fence, those kind of things. But I built confidence and her confidence at the same time. We worked through it together, learning to accept that I was afraid. And then how, like you said, triation, to work closer and closer and closer. And I'm still going to be probably my helper, who's a wonderful, attuned. I had her on my podcast. Her name is Tiffany Stauffer. She comes and helps me with this horse. And it's just like you said, she's got the gift of the feel and the whole thing. And the Rita just goes, oh, it's you. Okay. That will be the one who'll actually get on her back the very first time. We're working together, because I think I would have so much baggage coming with me, that I would make my poor horse anxious. Thank God I have someone like Tiffany to help me. Okay.
Well, I mean, you respecting your own fear and your own boundaries, that means that you are trustworthy to you. That means that if you trust yourself, your horse will find it a lot easier. No, it's a circle, it's a circle of making those right decisions, and it's so important. Carry on.
Oh, exactly. Okay, and then the last question we have is, what is the luckiest thing that has ever happened to you?
I was born to my mother. My mother is my absolute hero. She has been an incredible role model. Incredible. She's always supported me. She's never ever let me down. She's she's sorted me out when I've needed sorting out, but she's never ever left me to flounder too much, and she taught me well. She taught me real values like loyalty and compassion and kindness and common sense. Yeah. If it wasn't for her empowering me, I don't think I would be anywhere near as happy as I am.
Oh, that's wonderful. And she's still with us then? She's still
yeah,
here?
she is. Yeah, I'm usually up with her about twice a week. She lives about an hour away from me.
That's right.
She has Great Danes. She lives with 3 dogs, and she loves big dogs. And when she had horses, she liked big horses. She used to have Clydesdales.
That's lovely. Well, we're gonna say a big hi to Julie's mom. Hey, Julie's
yeah.
mom. That's wonderful. I'm glad of it. Okay,
she at least will listen to this.
There you go. We'll have one person, so that's good. That's good, especially one from New Zealand. I love it. So wonderful. Okay. So then, how if people wanted to? Oh, wait. I'm going to let you speak about the book that you're working on, and then after that, we'll just talk about if someone wanted to get in touch with you, what is the best way. So let's talk about this book.
Okay. Well, I wanted to write a book about the basics, and like when I was working with those wild horses. We were told to just teach them the basics, to catch them, tie them, lead, trailer load, do all the things that are vital, pick up their feet and all that sort of thing. But what those horses taught me, of course, that those aren't the basics, and I started writing this book, and I just wanted to cover everything I learned, all the things that I would like to have known when I was starting out. When I spoke to Warwick about it, and he said, the best thing ever. He just says, well, the basics aren't the basics. The basics are the things that you do in order to do the basics. and I mean, that's my book. And I'm very pleased he's given me permission to quote him on that. So yeah, but it's a little bit anecdotal. There's a lot of research. I've learned a lot about myself in the process of writing it because I really should have got it out by now. The book is written. I'm just now editing. I'm down to the last 2 chapters.
Wonderful.
I've got the wonderful Tanya Kindersley of the Red Mare. She has agreed to edit it for me. She's a very good author, writer.
I have her book. Yep, I have her book. Yep.
Yeah. She's written about 16 books, and she's ghostwritten books for other people as well. So hopefully, I'm going to be handing it into her careful custody soon, and she'll knock it into shape and make it the best version of itself it can be. Yeah, and I'll be self-publishing. For various reasons, I haven't approached any publishers. I think that it's a very niche sort of subject, and I'm not well known enough to get into the type of books that publish those niche subjects. So I just need to get it out there. Oh, there's a saying I've just thought of. One of the previous ones, Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer, he influenced me a lot a long time ago, and one of the things he says is, don't die with your song still inside you. No, I do think that this is my song, and so I'm just getting that out there. So yeah,
that's fantastic. Okay, and then if someone had wanted to, well, first of all, we can find your comments on which are the pages that you comment on the most, the trainers that you have your wonderful insights on Facebook, because that's where I found
probably Warwick's. Since I've been writing the book, I haven't really been spending much time on Facebook as such, and I do have a page. I've got a web page and a Facebook page. I didn't mention them on the form because I'm a bit embarrassed about them because I've been completely neglecting them. No, there's nothing on there, which is no. There's stuff on there which I've changed my mind about, for example. But sure. Just so people know, it's poniesnaturally.com, just one word, poniesnaturally.com.
And we'll list this on the show notes, but if they wanted to email you or something, they could find you through that website, or how would they contact you?
Absolutely. Or my Facebook page is called Ponies Naturally as well. I'm also on Facebook just as Julie Smart, and my avatar always has horses on it, usually a few of them. So that will I'm pretty easy to find, really.
No, you're a very open, lovely person. I mean, I just reached to you out of the blue and said, I got to have you on my podcast because the way you comment and explain things, and I learn from you all the time. So I was thrilled when you said yes. And that's probably a good place to wrap it up. I'm really
Yeah.
grateful you took the time with us today, and you were talking to me, as we mentioned, from the future, because you're 18 hours ahead of me.
Yeah,
So here it's
right.
Sunday in Wisconsin, and it's Monday in New Zealand, and I have so much
That's
fun
right.
wrapping my brain around that. So
Yes, okay.
so
Oh,
you know
thank
the
you for
future.
inviting me, though.
So,
Yeah,
well,
I
this has
really
been
appreciate
lovely.
the invitation. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, and I was surprised, but yeah, it's yeah. I've enjoyed this. Thank you very much.
Well, we're
Really cool.
grateful that you were able to come.